Welcome to your video for Activity 2. In this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly what pi is and how mathematicians came up with this symbol and exactly what it represents. And we're going to connect back to circumference because remember, we want to be able to figure out the circumference of a circle. And in order to do that, you're going to need to use this formula. Well, we don't want to just use a formula when we don't understand what it means. So this video is going to explain how you can find the circumference of a circle by taking its diameter and multiplying it by pi. So this first part of the video is going to talk us through pi. What is it? Where did it come from? I'm going to go through an activity that I did here at home that you're more than welcome to do at your house too. You just need to gather some circular objects. It doesn't matter if there's as small as a quarter or as large as a swimming pool. So in my house, I was able to find a plate, an aluminum can, a quarter, and then we're actually cleaning my above ground pool to put it up hopefully in a month. So I was able to find the pool and the box for it as well with some measurements that I might have used. So you've got your circular objects and we need to take a few measurements. Like any good mathematician, I created a data table to stay organized. So here are my objects: plate, pool, can, and quarter. And I used my tape measure to take two measurements. I measured the circumference, which is the distance around the outside of a circular object, and I measured the diameter, which is the distance across a circular object, end to end, crossing through the center. So I took these two measurements for all four of my objects. My measurements are here. Some are in feet, some are in inches. In this case, it's actually okay because in the end, the ratio is without units. So I have my circumference and I have my diameter. Now, over in this last column, you'll see that I took the circumference of each object and divided it by the diameter. So each one of these quotients here was found by taking the circumference and dividing it by the diameter. Now you'll notice they're not the exact same number. For the plate, the ratio was 3 and 1600ths. For the pool, it was 3 and 1200ths. And you can see for the can and the quarter. Well, here's something that you should remember from math class. We're not robots. We're not perfect. There's going to be human error anytime that humans measure. So one way that mathematicians have kind of worked around that is to use averages. So I took the average of these four quotients and I got the number here in the yellow box. Does that number look familiar to you at all? It should. It's pi. So 3.14 is what you are commonly used to calling pi. It's actually an approximation, which means it's not exactly correct, but that it's close. We'll talk about that in just a few slides. So what discovery did we just make? We just discovered that when you take the circumference and divide it by the diameter of any circular object, no matter if it's enormous like a swimming pool or tiny like a quarter, the circumference divided by the diameter produces pi, or 3.14. Well, this is not the same formula that we were looking at on the first slide. I'm going to use a fact family, which you're used to doing. And if pi equals circumference divided by diameter, then circumference must equal diameter times pi. And look down here. Circumference is equal to diameter times pi. So we were able to use this ratio that we discovered in the circle activity to come up with the formula for circumference of a circle. So what if I wanted to find the circumference of a circle? The only measurement that I actually need is the diameter. And I would take the diameter and multiply it by pi, or its approximation, 3.14. So let's reiterate. To find the circumference of any circle, you just take its diameter and multiply it by pi. So pi, what exactly is pi? Pi is this really long, irrational number. Irrational means so far. Scientists and mathematicians have found no end to this number. It goes on and on and on, so far forever. So we use a symbol instead. So here's the symbol for pi, which represents this really long irrational number. You can also use the word pi, Pi. More than likely, this is what you're going to use in this unit. So whenever we need to use pi in a formula, feel free to use 3.14. You can also use the pi button if you have a scientific calculator, or if you turn your cell phone sideways, the pi option will show up. But it's totally fine to use 3.14. Probably the least common representation for pi is 22 divided by 7. You certainly could use that ratio as well. It's probably the least common thing to use. So let's summarize what we learned in activity 2. We learned that to find the circumference of any circle, no matter how big or small, you just take its diameter and multiply it by pi. Now, more than likely, we will use the approximation 3.14 to represent pi.